This is a coping mechanism podcast.
This is a coping mechanism podcast.
This is a coping mechanism podcast.
Greetings, one and all, to another exciting episode of This is a Coping Mechanism podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ted Henderson, joined by my wonderful co-host,
Bessie. And join us in how we cope with things through this satire life with movies, media, mysteries, and more.
getting really good at that.
Am I? Wow, look
Yeah.
at me.
Hello out there, folks.
Hi.
Today's episode, we're going to be talking about, dreams.
Dream. Close your eyes. Dream.
That is so much creepier than Dreamweaver. Before this episode started, I was like, Dreamweaver. And then Bessie was like, I don't know what that is. And I was like, you don't know what Dreamweaver is?
And then I was like, dream. And you don't know what that is from Shark Boy and Lava Girl?
No, but
And we
yours
had a
is
whole thing
creepy.
about it.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Good.
How's it going, Bessie?
Good, how are you?
It's been a min.
It's been a minute?
People still say that? It's been a min.
It's been a minute. Yeah, people still say that.
Okay.
I still say it.
I don't know what you fangled kids are up to these
Like,
days.
we're not the same exact age.
I am 87 years old. I'm not 87, but I definitely have the air and mindset of someone in a solid mid-50s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, maybe not mid-50s, but definitely like mid to late 40s, where it's
For
like,
sure.
they kind of know what's going on
Yeah.
for like everyone who's younger, but their head is like shooting straight on till death.
I feel like just because I'm on like TikTok and stuff, there's some words that I keep up on, but there's
you're
even
like-
some things I have no idea what the fuck
Where you're
that
like,
is.
Riz, dog, I got that Riz.
See, I don't like that word.
Really?
Like, that was one of them. I was like, nah, I won't be using that.
I was told I had Riz the other day.
Hell
and I was
yeah,
like,
look at you.
What the fuck did you just say to me?
It took me a while to like get how people use that word.
I thought they said Ritz, and I was like,
Yes.
are they talking about crackers? Are they talking about putting on the Ritz? What's going on? They're like, no, you got the Riz. And I was like, okay, I need to know, are you insulting me or not? Because I need to know if
I
I'm
just
being.
need to know how to take this right
And
now.
they're like, no, it means that, like, you.
Yeah,
It's
you
a
got
good thing.
Riz.
And I was like, oh, it's like swagger.
Swagger.
Yeah.
Or I used to think like when people would be like, this was in like high school, and they'd be like, oh, she's so bad, and I'm like, ooh, like bad, like she's bad. They're
naughty?
like, yeah, they're like, nah, like she's bad, like she's hot, and I'm like, oh, got it.
Like, awesome. I remember whenever I was in high school and like people said swagger, and I'd be like, what the hell is that even supposed to mean? What the hell is swagger? And this guy was like,
I like swag, but I don't like swagger.
I think, well, they would
Nothing
say
with a hard R sounds right.
they would say swag, and then I'd be like, what the fuck is swag? And be like, like swagger? And I was like,
You're like,
the
no.
fuck are you talking about? And
Just
they'd be
because you
like,
added more letters doesn't mean I
I
get
know,
it.
right? And then they were like, I asked this buddy of mine, and he was like, he was like, he was like, he was like, yeah, man, you don't like swagger? And I was like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, man, like when you walk in and you got that,
swag.
and I was like, and you're swagging? And he was like, no, man, it's like,
No, it's not the ing part.
and he would be like, man, the only thing that I'm swagging is my dick, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? And then he got really irritated and was just like,
That's
it
like
ain't for
that
you, man.
movie, We're the Millers.
Oh, I love that
And
movie.
he was like,
man.
you know what I'm saying? He's like, no, I don't get what you're
Yeah.
saying. Because he
Can
just
you
kept
just-
saying it. You know what I'm saying?
There's a really, have you ever seen Trailer Park Boys?
It sounds familiar, but probably nothing I'd recognize.
It's this Canadian show that got really famous, and the whole show is about like these three dudes who live in a trailer park committing like minor crimes and trying to get
It's
rich
petty
and stuff.
shit.
Yeah, like petty shit, living their lives. But one of the people in the trailer park is this like white dude who lives with his mom, who's trying to be a rapper, who's trying to like
love
be
that.
a gangster. And then he just goes around, he says, "No, I'm saying,"
No,
like
I'm saying.
100 times, like, I'm just trying to do this. No, I'm saying. No, I'm saying. I'm just like coming here. No, I'm saying. I'm up here. No, I'm saying. And then his buddy was this like black dude named Tyrese. He's like, everyone knows what you're saying. You have to ask it 37 times. You don't have to ask me. No, I'm saying 37 times. Like 1 or 2 times. That's all you gotta say it. I already know what you're saying. And he's just like, what do you guys gotta get on me? If no, I'm saying that's what I'm saying. No, I'm saying. And he's just like,
And you know the trailer park I grew up in? Nobody said that.
really?
Maybe it's because we were in the middle of the buttfuck Alaska, but nobody was saying, you know what I'm saying?
Everyone was like, no, we all know what we're saying. It sucks.
Literally. Oh, man. All right. Today we are talking...
They were talking about the dreams and the Sandman.
Sandman.
Mr. Sandman,
Bring
give
me
me a dream. Make him the something I ever did see.
I only know the melody, so I was gonna
Yeah.
let you on the lyrics.
I think it's cutest boy I've ever seen, but I'm not 100%
See,
on
that
that.
sounds weird.
It sounds weird. But anyway, reminds me. You know, well, I was like, oh, what's another like creepy song like that also
There's
works?
a lot of those.
Yeah, and I was thinking about Jeepers Creepers. You ever seen that movie?
Yeah, but what's
like,
the song?
Jeepers Creepers,
Where'd
let
you
me get those
those?
peepers.
Let me get those peepers. Okay.
Or
I thought
think
it was
it's-
where'd you get
I think
those
it is
peepers.
where'd you get those peepers, and then it's where'd you get those eyes.
Yes.
And
That's a
then,
good
but
one.
I always thought it was let me get those peepers because I didn't hear that till I watched. He listens to that song, the bat, like the monster,
Yeah.
and then
The
I always
monster.
thought it said let me get those peepers because he was taking
People's
eyes
eyes.
and body parts and shit. Speaking about taking eyes, segue into what we're talking about here. So I have some questions that I wanted to ask you about dreams, but did you want to talk about the show? And
Yeah, let's get into the show because I still...
What'd you think of it? So I'm a big fan, and
Yeah,
I brought up this topic
I
to you.
thought I was gonna like it, but I didn't really like it.
Mm.
I think it was just... And I kind of like dove into more of like reading each episode like thoroughly its like plot, and then like hearing people compare, like reading about people compare the comics books to the show. And I already could tell there was so much in that whole universe that when it just threw it at me the first few episodes, I was like, there's too much going on that I don't know what's going on. Because I liked the premise, but I just couldn't get into it because I just felt kind of confused the whole time. Like, it was hard to keep up with everything and being like, well, why is it like that? And then I'd Google it and be like, oh, well, in this part of this 75 series comics, I was just like, yeah, I just feel like I'm lost.
Yeah,
But there were moments I could see how I would like it, but it was hard for me to like really get into because it was just too much going on.
I
for me.
think I agree. I think if you haven't read the comics or listened to the audio drama, like the what's it called, the Audible audio drama for it, then it really does kind of lose some of its
like the lore of it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that some stuff still stands on, so, like those stories that are contained.
Yeah, I like those.
Like
those are what I liked.
I was gonna say, did you watch the cat episode?
Yeah,
did you like
yeah,
that one
yeah.
a lot? Yeah.
So I liked like the little one-off kind of stories, or like when he'd go into like dreams or nightmares, and you could see like the control of like why he needed to be around, and because he was locked away for so long.
Yeah.
But it just kind of hopped everywhere, and then there was like his siblings, and then this, and then the devil, and then hell, and I was just like, what the fuck is happening?
You know, I gotta say, like, even in the comic, they don't really explain all
like
that
everything.
much. Yeah, right away. Like, it's all kind of, it comes together later.
Because these are what the comics are from.
The comics are from the 80s.
By Neil
Gaiman.
Yeah.
Which is why I thought the show was going to be a lot more faithful, because Neil Gaiman also like produced the show.
Yeah.
I think he directed like episodes and stuff. I know he was like, hands-on doing like all of the prop work, a lot of the stuff.
Kind of like in The Strain, like the guy Guillermo del Toro was definitely involved.
Yeah, and I know that like I remember watching set videos of Neil Gaiman being like, this is what I like, holding like the different pieces in the helmet and looking at like the glass, like Dream's prison, the glass orb, being like, this is what I always imagined it would be.
I mean, there's definitely, I was reading and I was looking at the pictures that there's like a lot of shots from the comics that they kind of recreated.
Yeah,
And
which I really appreciate.
yeah, and I think that's cool. Or like I saw, because I guess this is DC.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was DC because I'm definitely not into like superhero stuff or anything. But even in like the show, there's moments you can see like Justice League action figures, Wonder Woman, like they
Yeah.
little Easter eggs. There's a lot of Easter eggs for like fans that were like really gonna get it. He put it in there.
I thought it actually kind of lost some of its uh punch because it did the show is not as hardcore as the comics.
Right. I wanted to see more of like the nightmare stuff, which I heard gets pretty dark in the comics.
In the comics,
and that would have been cool.
It's like,
or even if like each episode was its own of just like a nightmare and it didn't necessarily need to be like this whole running story, like that would have been cool.
So speaking of nightmare, so like the first episode, Dream gets captured.
Yes. His name's what, Morpheus or something?
So his name is technically it's Dream, but Morpheus is like the term that people
like the
have
human
given.
part of it. Okay.
But he is there's a really good line in the death episode where she's giving him shit and he's like, "You're the dumbest personification of an immortal function of living creatures that ever existed," and it's just like, oh, he's just this manifestation of control.
Right.
So Dreams, he is kind of them. It's very like amorphous, higher entity like death and and desire, blah, 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 the other people.
Yeah, exactly. Did you know in some of those episodes when they were had his ravens like helping him or following him, some of those are actually like real ravens.
Oh, really?
Some of them were like fake ravens, just like props. Some were like CGI, and then they actually used like, I think it was like 2 or 3 real ravens, and they said they all had like crazy different personalities, but there's actually like real shots of ravens, which I thought was really cool.
I was really impressed with how much was like actual practical effects in this,
not all just
CG nonsense and whatnot. Like I hear that it was like this was a very expensive show to make because of how much they
I didn't know
wanted
how
to make
recent it
real.
Was when I started watching it. 2022. That's pretty recent for like how old like the comics and stuff are.
Yeah, there's there it is weird because in the comics books like AIDS comes up a lot because they were made during the AIDS epidemic. So like I remember in the comic John D, everyone thinks that he has AIDS because he's like skinny and like walking around looking weird, so they think that he's like just this
sick guy.
Yeah, just sick guy. His stuff gets ruined by the fact that that it's not really in DC because well, I guess we'll get to him. We're jumping ahead. So the first episode is all about Morpheus getting captured, and then the Burgess story, which is it's pretty simple. Like when you look at it as a whole, it's pretty much just like this weird. I think it's like early 1900s. It's because the time frame for the show is sooner than what it is for the comic, because as you can imagine, it takes place in the 80s. He's there 100 years, so it starts in like 1880 or something. But in this,
they do flashbacks for sure.
Yeah. So in this, it's like he gets captured, and by this occult society who's run by Robert Burgess, this Magus guy.
Yeah.
And then it's pretty much just like he's there in prison for 100 years. And then this guy dies, and then he doesn't get released until there's like
his son's husband.
Yeah.
Like breaks the sand or something.
Yeah, it breaks like the magic seal, which does happen in the comic book. Okay. That's all like shot for shot, which I was pretty impressed with. From most of the first episodes, like shot for shot, until the ending where he curses the Burgess's son with nightmares. And that's when you're like, oh, shit's fucked up in this comic book, because they start showing like, like a nurse comes in to check on him, and then she like cuts her head off and throws it to him, and then starts like laughing, and then he runs, and like the walls start turning into like maggots and snakes and melting as his like husband comes out dying,
Yeah.
and it shows him living through like 3 different nightmares
Damn.
that are like horrifyingly
Yeah.
drawn, and he's just like, oh, this is the rest of your life, welcome to eternity.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Damn.
oof.
It's dark.
And then it just gets more intense. And then, but yeah, I wish that they had done more. That was whenever I was like, oh, are they not gonna go as hard into the nightmares?
They're starting season 2, I heard.
Yeah,
I read.
I'm hoping that they didn't, because they didn't have enough money. They wanted to put their money into like the later big story stuff.
Right.
So they were like, oh, we can cut back on this. It's not
Yeah.
necessary. So we'll just save our money here, put it over
Yeah.
here. Hopefully they get more money, and then we can start seeing the real
Right.
real
The
shit.
dark, crazy stuff.
And then next we have where, you know, after it flows pretty good until it starts like skipping around and stuff,
Yeah.
where like he goes back to the dreaming.
Right, and it's
This
all
l-
destroyed.
Yeah, everything's fucked up. He goes and finds Cain and Abel.
Yeah, see, that was all just random to me. Like,
yeah,
let me take this dragon
that's not in the comic at all.
just to, like, give him another one, and then, like, the brothers like, that one brother's kind of an ass and just, like, kills this brother even though he can come back alive. Thanks for not burying me so deep, and I'm just like, this is so random.
Yeah,
Like, why?
so
You could have just said he needed to collect things he gave people to restore himself, but not really have to, like, go into, like, this
yeah.
whole thing.
that made no sense to me, because like, then if you could do that with everything, he made everything. What
Exactly.
in the comic, he takes their writ of office, which is, I guess, like this paper that he made that like is Cain. The 2 guys are Cain and Abel, and they're supposed to be the first story.
Got it.
So like the first story of a brother who was jealous, murdered his other brother, who then relived that story
Over and
forever.
over, yeah.
And then but because that story inspired so many things, it became inherent to men's dreams, so they kind of live and work in the dreaming
Yeah.
as these like manifestations of eternal men's dreams and thoughts.
So are those real people?
Kind of, yes and no.
Okay, that's why I was just confused. I just couldn't tell like which world was what for the purpose of whatever.
For the story that
Yeah.
you're trying to tell. Yeah, that's why it makes more sense there, because he doesn't go for like a gargoyle or anything like
Right.
that. He's like, hey, whenever I let you live in the dreaming, I gave you this like document that's basically that is a piece of me that says you're allowed to be here.
Right.
I need that so that way I can do it. And I was like, okay, sure. You
Yeah.
know, that makes sense. But in this, I was like, it just seems like you wanted to add some weight to be like, oh, we're killing the cute gargoyle. That seemed
I know. I was like kind of sad. I was like, damn, look, he loves him so much.
right. And it's like it seemed like you just like one of the producers for Netflix was like, we need a punch.
Exactly.
Do something like that. But then it was mostly that, and then I don't really think it starts like getting good till he starts going on the quest, where that's like the next episode where Constantine shows up,
Yep.
which I have a problem with, and not the one you may think. I don't have a problem with how they made Constantine a woman in this. I don't actually care about that. I think she did actually a really great job, and I love Jenna Louise Coleman.
Yeah.
What I do have a problem was that if you put a comic book character who's integral to the story in this thing, then you don't have the other comic book characters that are important to it.
Right.
Why even do that?
What's the point?
Yeah, why not just make a different character? I don't know. I didn't get that.
I didn't get half the show.
That's true. Do you know anything about Constantine or anything like that, or was that all just like
Yeah, it's kind of all blew over my
just
head.
like whoosh?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, they're a very important like DC character. They're like the big wizard.
Isn't there a movie called Constantine?
Yes, there is. It's the same character. It's played
Okay.
by Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like I've seen that, and it was great.
Yeah, it is great.
Okay,
They're
so it's-
making another one.
Okay, so it's kind of related into
Yeah,
that
so that's-
storyline.
Yeah, so it's supposed to
Okay.
be the same character.
Gotcha.
And like I don't know if you remember that movie, but he's just got like a bunch of random old occult shit,
Right.
and then it's supposed to be like, you know, if this great entity just shows up and is like, one of the things is mine, give it back. And he's like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
But that was whenever I was like, oh, they're not. That's another time where they're not going as hardcore, because you know, whenever like they go get the sand, and then
Yes.
that chick's just like there and she looks skinny and stuff.
The old lady?
Yeah.
The one that was like selling and buying
no,
like
like
artifacts? Or not that one?
Constantine's girlfriend, who they like go to pick up the sand from, but she's like been all fucked up by it and she's about to die.
Yeah. Because wasn't it keeping her alive or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because she's like addicted to it and
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
dreams. In the comic book, it's like there's just like strands of it, like everyone. I think it's just her dad and her in the house, but it breaks down like all of them to where all of the walls are like Geiger covered in like blood and viscera and like living human flesh, that it's all
Damn.
just, it's like walking through a den of nightmares
Yeah.
into this woman who's like being held up by her own like tendons and stuff,
Oh,
like
shit.
some Hellraiser shit. And she's like, I'm just dreaming.
I'm
And
just a girl.
yeah. And you're like, what the fuck is going on?
And so she.
But yeah,
Yeah.
then it's all just real basic and simple. And I was like, okay, I guess, you know.
And then there's that lady
Which
who
one?
gets visited by that guy who wears like those dark sunglasses.
Oh yeah, the Corinthian
Yeah.
and
And he like
And
says
then-
to her like, hey, he's coming after the
Yeah.
gem. And then she visits her son in
Yeah,
this like
John D.
asylum. Yeah, that's his name.
so that's the
And that's when it got a little more interesting
Interesting.
because I liked that whole scene where he was at that diner. That was
Yeah.
fucking cool. I wanted more of that.
that's what I would in the so they really seem to focus later on the whole like Angela Kincaid and Rose Walker story,
Yeah.
where you know how that was like, I have it on here, it's like 3 episodes
Yeah.
is just that story. That is like a similar amount in for the John D stuff, but the John
Mhm.
D is only 1 episode.
Yeah. Because he just wanted power, right? With the gem, was he like obsessed with the power
He wanted to
of the ruby or whatever? Because he wanted everyone to like live in a world of telling the truth and
yeah,
to the point of just like killing each other.
yeah, exactly. But he also like,
And that's in the real world.
yes,
You know.
that's and that, again, I think that is like the biggest, that is the biggest loss of the, if you don't like reading comic books, I'd say go listen to the Audible audio drama, because it's has the same oomph in it. That's all
Yeah.
based a lot more on the comics, but that's the biggest loss of this whole thing, is that is the most messed up, that's one of the most messed up things I've ever seen, is what they convey in that part in the comic, where, and it's, you also lose a lot, that's where the superhero parts come, is he's
Yeah.
a old supervillain,
Okay.
and that asylum he's in is supposed to be Arkham,
Got it.
which I don't know if you know, that's where that's where the Joker goes, where Batman sends all of the crazy
Oh,
supervillains.
that's cool. Yeah.
And
Okay.
he was supposed to be, he's like crazy old and was caught like forever ago.
Yeah.
And they put him in like the basement of Arkham and just forget about him.
Mm.
So he's like this horror, and then whenever they see him in this, looks like a normal guy.
I actually really like that actor.
Yeah, me too. I thought he was
He was
good,
good.
but in the comic he's like
Decrepit.
he looks like a skeleton monster.
Yeah.
They talk about how like he like is fully naked but cut off his genitals and has mutilated
Oh.
himself to the point of like being this like just a couple hairs monster
Yeah,
of a
yeah,
man
yeah.
who's like
Damn.
so covered in scars, so like bone skinny, so like messed up.
See, that sounds way better.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then it, for the most part, the gist is still the same, where like he finds the lady,
Right.
but the lady's so terrified, and then he like makes her drive her.
Yes.
She's not being nice. She is nice and does help him, and then is like trying to help him work through it. And then you think it's gonna be fine. In the comic, he like gives her the amulet and says, no one's ever gonna hurt you.
Yeah.
You're protected. He murders her straight up and is like, you're gonna be okay. And then he pulls out a gun and shoots her in the head and goes and gets the
Jeez.
amulet. And then, oh my god, if you think the diner was like,
I mean, I didn't think it was crazy in the sense of like I've seen way more fucked up shit, but that's what I wanted more of.
Yeah.
That kind of twisted control.
you would have got it. Let me there's
Because that's when Sito jumped in on the episode, and he was like, you said you didn't really like it, but this seems fucking cool. I was like, this is not what it's been like at all.
Yeah, there's a lot more of that in others, like, that they just didn't put in there. There's a scene in the comic version and in the audio drama that is a big point where, you know how he's like talking about he wants everyone not to lie, and he thinks that lying is like the basis for why the world's so fucked up, is he starts having everyone tell the truth.
Yeah.
And there's only like I think there's only like 4 or 5 people in the diner in this one. There's like a few more in.
I was appalled because when he started like making people tell the truth, kind of, when that lady went to the kitchen. I was like, oh, you can come over, and he's like, oh, sometimes when you go to sleep, I like to go up there and fuck your son. And sometimes he fucks me. I was like, oh my god, what is happening?
Oh man, I think that was actually better done. That actually probably is better done in the show. In the comic, it's just that guy is he talks about her son's been missing.
Oh.
And he went off.
Her son's grown, right?
Yeah.
Because at first I was like, did he just say that about like a fucking kid? But then it sounded like he was like,
he just got home from college.
Yeah.
He's like 21.
Like it was more willing.
Yeah. In the comic, he gets arrested and goes to prison for a little bit, and then he never told her, but he finds her son in prison, and then buys him for a pack of smokes, and then like rapes him to death.
Oh my god.
And then that guy also murdered his wife, who was an alcoholic, and then bought a case of vodka, put it in her bedroom, and then left for a weekend. And then there's another story where like the CEO lady is telling the story. This is probably one of the most fucked up things. And when you hear it in the audio drama and it's like expertly delivered by, where she tells this story where she's like, what's the worst thing you ever done? And then she's like, I'm not going to tell you that. And then he does his like Ruby shit. And he's like, and then she tells the story like, when I was in college, my apartment was next to this mortuary, and I snuck in one time just because I thought it'd be fun and it was exciting. And there was a dead guy on the slab still getting read up, and he was, he had rigor mortis. So I jumped up on him, and then she goes into detail about how she commits necrophilia, and his mouth starts filling with blood, and how at that point her husband, the guy who gets the burger, it's like, sometimes I make him pretend not to move and not say anything and all this stuff, and you're like,
because the only thing you get out of that is he doesn't want to have sex with me.
Yeah.
And I control what he eats, kind of.
I know, and it's like,
and then they all have sex, and then they kill each other.
Yeah.
And that was that.
And then they also go into a lot more detail about like how the world's getting fucked up.
That's what I was kind of lost about.
Yeah, they don't really.
I think I was so caught up in like him being like him as in Dream.
Yeah. Being
like, because I've been trapped for so long and everything's gone to shit. And I kind of just didn't get the balance of like, well, where is that? Because, sleeping's important. Obviously, the dreaming is a more important part. And then there's like nightmares tied in. But it was still kind of like, they didn't give us that.
Yeah, they didn't really do a good job of expressing how much the dreaming affects the real world.
And that's what I thought the whole show was really going to be about. I think that's why I didn't really like it or couldn't get into it. Because I just was like, well, you keep talking about how bad it is and you have to get back, but like you're barely showing us anything.
Yeah. Versus they do a lot better job of that, where like whenever he's making Diner go crazy, he's also making the world go crazy. So like that TV that's like on,
Yeah.
and they're just kind of like, oh, some stuff's weird.
Yeah.
In the other side, there's like they like change it to like a kid show, and it's like a kid doing a puppet, and it's like Mr. Bean said we should all kill ourselves, and then he starts like stabbing the puppet in his hand and bleeding everywhere, and he starts killing the kids and himself. Exactly.
So is the sense of when Dream was locked away or trapped, people were only having nightmares, causing people obviously in the real world realm to just be like violent, or like they weren't sleeping, or like they were just going crazy? Like that's what I don't get about the whole show. Is like,
so the whole idea, his effect of not being there is that nightmares and dreams are in this, they're the same and they're equal level of importance.
yes.
But whenever he's not there, then people aren't dreaming or having nightmares or being properly.
So they're not dreaming or having nightmares at all.
Yeah, and then
So they're not processing
properly.
Oh,
So
okay,
it's like, society has kind of gone to shit in the last 100 years
because
because
our brain's not
we're
helping us process things.
Yeah, this innate function of
yes,
living
okay.
beings is not being met, and because of that, everything's kind of fucked up.
That makes more sense, because that's where I was like, I'm just again, I'm lost.
Yeah, and then that is supposed to be more of like a subtle thing, and then John D shows up and he's like, no, I'm using this power to make it tangible in the real world. Here's how fucked up things are, and we're going to change it.
Yeah, okay.
And you're like, oh, okay.
See, now like knowing all that and then thinking when I was watching, it makes more sense.
But they do nowhere near as good. It's a lot better at it's a lot better at just like telling the stories.
Yeah.
Which is when I think it gets. I mean, I like the part like I like him going to hell, and
Yeah.
I thought I don't know her name, but Brienne of Tarth, the person who played Lucifer. I thought she was.
When I saw her on there, I was like, oh, I fucking love her.
Right.
She's such a good actress.
She was great too.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta tell you though, you know how she like vows vengeance and all that stuff? Huge disappointment. I don't know if they're gonna change it in the comic. Huge disappointment. But anyway, so then that's the whole John D stuff, and then like he blows up the ruby, and then he's like, oh great, now you're good. And then next we have where Death shows up.
Yeah.
And then you find out that there's more of these like
kind of entities.
Yeah, these personifications of greater functions of life. And there's Sister Death, who they do that really well. I was really hoping. Do you know who Kat Dennings is?
I'm sure maybe if I saw a picture, but I'm not like great with people's.
Yeah. She's Andrew WK's wife. She's an actress. She's very pale. You ever seen Two Broke Girls? Okay.
Oh yeah.
She's
the gothy big boot. Yeah, she was in House Bunny.
Oh, I've never seen that. But...
and she's like this big goth kind of bimbo with all these piercings, and they like make her all hot because
she is crazy.
She
hot.
is. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
She plays Death in the audio thing, and she's so great. And I was like, oh, I really hope they get Kat Dennings. Yeah, I was like, she's already a really good actress and stuff. She seems perfect, but they do it. I thought that I don't know the name of who they got for it, but I thought she was good.
I've seen her before and some stuff, and she's a good actress.
Yeah, she was good. I just was really looking forward to seeing Kat Dennings.
Yeah.
But then we also, in that episode, we get my favorite story so far in the comic, in this, whatever, and that's he makes a bet with Death, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, of a guy who says he's never gonna die, and
Yeah.
then Dream believes that the longer you live, you want to die, you want it to
Right.
end. He doesn't seem to understand that perspective of
I don't know why
humanity.
anybody would want to fucking live like forever.
I don't know. I'm kind of on this guy of
Really?
like, good or bad, you just get to keep experiencing. Cause like
That sounds horrible. Wow.
maybe I don't know, like like
Or you become so numb to everything, then it's like almost hard to enjoy anything at that point.
maybe I guess it's all just like we see he doesn't age.
I was gonna
after
say, yeah, I
that.
guess
he
if you
just
don't age. Again, it's like being a vampire. Like, you turn if you're a certain, whatever age you turn, and then you're that forever. That just doesn't sound appealing to me.
maybe, but
But it does too.
yeah, kind of, cause like so I've been depressed and
Mhm.
anxiety. Like like most people, I kind of wax and wane with problems, and I've thought about suicide.
Mhm.
Now and again, and something that has come up in my mind of like, oh, I'm not going to experience these things that I want to experience. If I do that, I'm cutting off my opportunity for experiences. And that's not the only reason saying, but that definitely does come up where I'm like, and so
Is it like FOMO to you almost when you think of that?
no, it's not. It's just like,
Like fear of missing out? Or is it just your own
no,
experience?
it's just my experience of, there's things that I enjoy, and even whenever I've been like depressed and I feel jaded and something, or like you're not getting as much out of an experience you want to, I still get something from that experience that I wouldn't have gotten. And we kind of see that in this guy where, they meet in a tavern every 100 years, and Morpheus keeps expecting him to be like, I want to die, and he just goes, things are just getting better. They're getting better and better until like, I think it's like 1789 or around there.
1800s-ish, maybe.
Yeah, where he's like a street urchin. He talks about like his family was dead. They tried to drown him as a witch. They took everything, and he's completely destitute, decrepit. He's starving. And I love that line where he's like, do you have any idea how hungry a man can get when he doesn't eat and he doesn't die?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, damn. I guess I never thought of it. But whenever Morpheus asks him, like, oh, so you ready? He's like, no, I have so much to live for. I kind of had like, I was like, yeah, you do, man. You keep going. Who knows what they're going to have
That's
next?
true. It's almost like an adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know what's coming.
And, I don't know. I think I'd probably...
I guess if it's the idea of like, I guess you couldn't starve to death. Even if he got shot or something, he'd still live, right? Like, that's the idea.
He just exists in perpetuity.
I guess that would kind of be cool. But I still feel like after at least a couple 100 years, I'd be like,
That's the thing is, I imagine that at some point, you do get that vampire jadedness.
Yeah.
Where you're like, who gives a fuck? No.
Right, or like everyone you loved has died because they can't live on with you forever. That'd be kind of shitty. But maybe again, it'd be nice to have so many memories with so many people you loved. I don't know. Perspective. Yeah. It's all about perspective.
Exactly. Like, this isn't a good. I'm prefacing this right now. This is not a good comparison. But like, I've had pets, like dogs who I've, my last dog, Dax, she was alive for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And she was my childhood dog. She passed away now about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. But I don't love, you guys actually can't see, but there's 2 dogs laying right here. There's one on the couch and one on the floor, passed out. I don't love these dogs any less, and I don't wish that I had we'd never gotten these dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's like a similar thing where it's like, I miss, it's been 100 years. I miss that family.
Yeah.
They're gone, but I really love this one too.
Yeah.
And
right.
This is no less than
even
this.
though that would make you maybe feel empty, you can easily kind of refill that with this, you know?
And it doesn't change like as
Right.
good as it
For sure.
time that I had with
Right.
that.
Definitely.
So
I see
I don't
that.
know. It's
I think now that you break it down to that perspective, maybe I'd be into it.
versus you're just like, oh, am I? I think that maybe it's you have to stop thinking about life as it's being lived now,
Right.
of just a day to day and routine and
Yeah.
base experiences. When you think about it on like a grand scale of 500 years, what does that look like?
Right.
And you know, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm gonna go see how long it takes for me to walk from one end of the earth to the other, and I'm not gonna die, and I'm gonna see what it's like to come back from the other side.
No,
And,
for sure, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I don't know. I thought it'd be cool.
Yeah, no, it definitely is more intriguing now.
But I do love that. I love that story. I love the end where he gets all offended, where he's like, "You know I'm never gonna want to die. You just want friends."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Fuck you."
And then in the end, he really sees him as a friend.
Yeah, and he's like, I thought it would be rude to keep
Yeah.
one's friends waiting. Freaking love that bit.
Yeah.
And then after that, I have this summarized. I don't know how much you wanted to. We can go into it more, but the rest of the show, pretty much, I am actually not as interested in because it doesn't have much bearing in what we're talking about with dreams, but also I actually thought that a lot of stuff around it was more interesting.
Yeah.
The rest of the show is a story of this thing called a dream vortex. Weird nonsense. It can mess up dreams in the real world and in the dreaming. And it's this girl named Rose Walker. This is much more the story of like the big story of the comic and the ramifications of this and how they continue on for the rest of the story. So I get why it's important. I wish they hadn't spent so much time with it.
Yeah.
So we got more time into other stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got that Corinthian. I thought he's great. Sucks that, you know, they kill him.
Yeah.
Because he was really good. I thought the serial convention,
Yes.
very funny when I was reading that for the first time before I watched this. And it was like, serial convention? And it's like, what the and I was like, what? Like, and then I looked up cereal, and they talk about it a little bit, but how like any base grain
Yeah.
is a cereal. And I was like, I guess they're in a small town, whatever. And it totally didn't get, like, they got me with it being serial killers, that because they don't preface it in this where they're like, oh, we killed this waiter to get a serial killer. They do it a lot more tongue in cheek, where I didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah.
I do love I do love Fiddler's Green, that character. Not only the actor who plays him, British guy, but just, you know, this big old timey British dude, and like looks kind of like Sherlock Holmes, and this big old green thing is running around helping people, like, oh, yes ma'am, lady, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how did no one look at you and go, you just don't fit, man? What are you doing here?
Yeah, exactly. I think overall that's a good summary of.
Yeah, the only other bit is a cat episode. Just neat. It's just a cat telling a story about dreams. I actually that was the one I saw that I was like, I bet Bessie would really like the cat bit. I bet it'd be big. And then the Calliope episode, where the muse who gets raped all the time, that was messed up.
Yeah.
I also, you know, I had forgotten that, you know, more that it's true to actual, you know, like Greek mythology or whatever, is that Morpheus, the king of dreams, weds Calliope, one of the muses, and then they give birth to they have a son who, the guy who goes to hell to get his wife. Anyway, mythology, am I
I told
right,
you
guys?
that whole show.
But I don't know. I'm a fan.
Sure. I can see the fandom of it.
Yeah.
the comics sound way more enjoyable than I think what I got out of the show itself.
Yeah.
But again, they're trying to plug a lot, so. But a
Yeah.
lot of people online seem to like absolutely love it, so seems like a hit for a lot of people.
Got good style, you know. I guess I don't know much about style, but I thought it was cool. Thought it looked cool. But anyway, I do think that what interesting about this show is a lot more of its conduit of what we're
Exactly.
talking about into dreams.
The actual dreaming itself
Yeah.
is what's fascinating.
Of like giving this as a deep dive of, are your dreams
Meaningful,
real?
yeah.
Or what is their merit on your life? Like, have you ever been influenced by your dreams in a serious way?
Yeah.
And I wrote down some questions. I don't know if you had.
Sure.
I have some basic ones and some ones that are a little more esoteric.
Okay.
So first one I have is like, do you remember your dreams?
I do.
Like,
since I was a kid, I've always had like super vivid dreams.
Me too.
And I could probably tell you why we do, but
I don't know why, but I always thought it was weird whenever I would talk about my dreams at school, and they'd be like, and I would be talking about like these minuscule details, and be like, how the fuck do you
do you
know stuff?"
remember that? Yeah.
And then I was like, do you not remember your? Is there a reason why it's like that? I'm very
I mean,
interested.
in general, when you have super vivid dreams, it's when you're in REM sleep, so rapid eye movement, and that's when you're like in the deepest part of your sleep, and that's why you usually remember them, because they feel so real, because you're such in a deep slumber. And not everyone REM sleeps, or they don't REM sleep a lot. There's a lot of things that can like affect it. You know, if you like drink too much, if you not super healthy, if you have just health issues in general. But yes, I've always had vivid dreams. I think because we both come from homes filled with trauma, that's a way of your brain processing things that your little kid self cannot. Like, I'll give you an example. Since I was little, I always had dreams of someone chasing me or like trying to get me. It just felt like threatened, like not safe in my dreams. And I always thought, like, as a kid all the way to teenager, to honestly even like my earlier 20s, like, I always wondered why I had dreams like that. Like, everyone else had just kind of like regular schmegular dreams, but mine were always me running or getting away from something. But I never knew why. I thought like, oh, well, I do watch a lot of like true crime or Law and Order. Maybe that's just like my brain processing
it's in the background.
Yeah, exactly. But as I've kind of like gotten into therapy, and I've actually kind of like done like little deep dives of rabbit holes about like what dreams can do for us mentally and how far it goes back to like their meanings. And I realized as I got older, like my dreams went from like someone chasing me kind of like confronting them, but I can't see their face, to it being my dad. So like my brain actually went from like a young kid, hey, there's a threat. You don't really get what it is, but no, there is a threat. To like getting old and realizing, who my dad was and how he was and why. That then I started to see like, my brain started being like, okay, now you see who the threat is, and now you can face it in your brain of, now I can like be face to face like I'm with you in a dream with my dad, where we have like guns pointed at each other, but the trigger never pulls. And you're just like, what the fuck? So like my brain literally processed for me, okay, your dad's a threat. Okay, now you can face him. You're not scared of him anymore. To like being face to face and the trigger never works, or the stabbings never kill,
Yeah, the punching never feels
yeah,
like
exactly.
It goes.
So to me that was very enlightening, to be like, wow, my brain was really trying to like tell me subconsciously, you need to kind of process this way, because you don't know what it's coming from, because you think it's normal, when you're a kid. But I thought that was very fascinating.
Yeah, that is. that actually goes into another question of, is there any specific nightmares that you remember?
Well, that one, and then I've had dreams continuously where like I remember them and I'm like, oh shit, I remember being in this dream before. Last time I tried to escape through the roof, now I need to do it a different way. So I like remember the whole layout and remember I have to try a different way. And that's pretty crazy. So it's like I've had these continuous dreams days or years later, but I still remember, oh, I've been here before and that time this way didn't work. I have to do it a different way. And it's always me like in a school or a mall and like you can feel something's coming and like you and a group of people are trying to like, you know, escape. That's always like what the feeling was. Or I'd be like in a mall and someone would like drop a baby and just leave it and I'd be like, who the fuck leaves a baby when like something's coming? And I'd pick up the baby and I'm the baby. And I realize as an adult, oh fuck, that's me trying to like save myself, which is like fucking mind-blowing in my opinion. Like just how our brains will do that for us.
Hey, it freaking me out a little bit because I've had very similar
Yeah.
dreams in this like not in the same places, but like I remember I would get repeating nightmares about being trapped in like this maze that was almost like a haunted, like a janky haunted house.
Yeah.
And it would be me running through the maze, and I would get stuck, and then like my older brother would find me, and then I would be trying to figure out how to get out.
Right.
And I remember I used to have this one repeating dream when I was a kid all the time where it would have like it would be a normal something. It would be like a normal happening where like I would have friends over, or I would be like at my grandparents, or like just doing something normal, and then my dad would show up, and then he like something would happen, and then he would get mad, and then he would go, I am Lord Satan, and then breathe fire in the air and shake, and then I'd be like, oh shit, and then like
Wake up.
sometimes I'd wake up, sometimes I would run.
Okay.
But I remember telling my dad that whenever I was a kid, and he was super upset about it. He wasn't like angry, he was just like, are you serious? And I
Right,
was
like that's a lot for a kid to be dreaming of.
every time, and I was like, you breathe fire and you shoot it in the air, and then things get like scary.
Yeah.
And
You still have those dreams?
I don't have those dreams, but I still remember them vividly. Like, and I
Yeah.
remember the maze
Yeah.
vividly. And I just remember a lot of my dreams. I could talk to you about the dream I had last night.
No, right. I have dreams like that all the time. But
Last-
mine are still always usually running from something. So, you know, if I like when I was watching The Strain, I kind of had like nightmares that were similar to like these zombie things.
Now, my nightmares are different.
Okay.
Whenever I was a kid, it was a lot of that, like running and
Mhm.
helplessness and trying to get away, not understanding what's going
Yeah.
on. Now, in my dreams, I have a nightmare, and it's a lot of me just trying to figure out how to fight it.
Mm.
So, like, I had
You recognize you're in a dream. It's a nightmare.
no, I just know that
okay.
there's a threat that I need to solve
Got it.
because there's no one else is going to. So, like,
Mm.
last night, I had a bad dream. I've also been watching The Strain, and there was zombie vampire monsters, and I was like, all right, I gotta find the guns. And like I was like going through my house, but it was different, and I was trying to find guns that I wanted to use, and
Yeah.
that I was okay. I was like, here you go. This, and my dad was in, and I was like, take this. It's not great, but it's to protect you. And he was like, I want a holster, and I was like, I'm not giving you a holster because you're not gonna be able to get it out in time. I'm gonna tie it on this string.
Yeah.
I'll put it right here so you can just go bang, and it's just gonna hang here, and we're gonna have to go through, and then
What a piece of string.
yeah, and then I was like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And and now a lot of my nightmares are like that, where it's some sort of like overwhelming threat
Yeah.
that I can't really face, but I'm
Okay.
trying to.
Right.
And then
Do you think they have you like tried to look up what that might mean?
no, I've never gone
Okay.
never. I don't I'd go to therapy, but I don't.
I mean, they also have like dream books online that you can just kind of cipher through, and it'll give you kind of like like the big ones are like, my tooth was loose in my dream or it fell out, and those are usually like you feel like you're like losing control. So like there's like little sometimes underlying things about.
This thing is, I fully, I believe in therapy and psychology, and I have no doubt of its merits, and I wish I could participate in those
Yeah.
things. But I think when it comes to dreams, and I've known people, the more you analyze
Mhm.
a realm of like basic nonsense that's already like kind of nonsensical in nature, even though there might be like base rules in the brain, and I think the more you look into the abstract ways the mind tries to deal with something, you delve more into the abstract, and there's no actual resolution from it. Um, like, I mean, and I could be wrong. Obviously, people say that they can get a lot from.
I mean, I think what dreams do are just kind of like, obviously help us interpret our daily lives, feelings, emotions, experiences. They say there's a lot of like, helps you support like your memories. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I feel like you could maybe get a little more out of like exploring that realm of it. But there are people who genuinely also believe that like when we dream, that's like an alternate dimension or universe, and I'm like, I fucking hope not, because that Bessie is always like running
Right.
from some shit. Like that would not be. I hope that's not me in like another dimension of time.
You brought up like figuring out you're in a dream. Do you ever lucid dream sometimes, like figure out and then like take control and have full
Yeah.
control?
There's a lot of time. I don't know if it's technically lucid dreaming, but there are times that I know I'm like in a dream, in the sense of like, oh, I remember this before. Like it has to be like a reoccurring dream, and I'm like, oh, like I said, last time I went through this crawl space and it didn't work, so now I have to go through another. So if that counts, I'm not sure.
No, I think I lucid dream sometimes, and it started like that.
Okay.
Where I'd figure out that I was in a dream, and I remember as soon as I figured out I was in a dream, it turned into a nightmare. Like things started to get horrifying.
I don't really ever have like good dreams.
I have good dreams. I have fun dreams sometimes, and
Never had a fun.
but whenever I was a kid, and I would realize that I taught myself how to wake up from the dream, where I would squeeze my eyes shut in the dream and then open them, and whenever I opened them, I would open them in real life. And then I realized, I heard something about how like, you're in a dream, you can control it. So now, anytime I realize I'm in a dream, I just go cool. And then I like clench and I start to fly, and I'm like, I'm in a dream, and then I slowly fly around.
See, that's what I was gonna say. I've never done that. Like, I've never recognized it to the point of like, oh, I'm in a dream. Let me see if I could like fly or fucking do a backflip or something.
Yeah.
It's never that control.
I've heard that there is people who can like, once they feel like they're in it, they can do like full control.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, now I'm here.
I think you literally have to like practice to do those things. I've heard some people like really get into their REM sleep so they can lucid dream.
Most I've ever been able to do is kind of like, fly is also a broad term. It's more like I float around with control.
Yeah. Have you heard sleep paralysis?
No, I actually.
That shit seems so scary.
Yeah, I didn't know, because I saw like something on the internet about like sleep paralysis demon.
Yeah.
And I was like,
everyone talks about it like it's the same experience across the board.
Yeah,
which is what's scary.
Yeah, is that so many people are having this exact thing that I'm like, maybe there is some weird sleep shit going on, because that many people having this same thing.
Well, have you ever heard of the like Russian sleep experiment?
No.
So it was like it was like one of the first things I dove down like the Reddit rabbit hole about. And people really believed it was like a real thing for a long time. And it was this, I won't give you like the whole synopsis, if that's the right word, of like this guy's storytelling.
That is right. I mean, we got another hour on this podcast. That's cool.
But I'll give you just the idea of like, I think it was like the 1940s, and these Russians were doing like sleep experiments because sleep is so important to the extent of like it's even used as like a torture technique to like deprive you of sleep because you start going fucking crazy. But
I'm sorry. You want to know how I learned that that's true? It's gonna sound so fucking stupid.
let's hear it.
Whenever FX
Hmm.
they got the right to play The Simpsons.
Okay.
They did a marathon where if you watched all of it, they advertised this heavily, where if you watched all of what they showed, you would die. And I was
Because
like,
it was like just continuously watching without
yeah,
sleep. Okay.
because they said, and then I looked it up and it was like, oh, if you don't sleep within this amount of time, you will die. And
Mhm.
that was and they were doing like an extra day on top of that of playing The Simpsons, and I was like, no fucking way, I can do it. And I stayed up for 2.5 days straight watching The
You
Simpsons
probably
with
started
no
like
sleep.
hallucinating and shit.
Yeah, it got weird, and then
Yeah.
I passed out.
I think they even say like, because people were always like, you need to, eat and drink water to live, but like a lot of people kind of like literally sleep on sleep, like this kind of toxic grinding culture of like, oh, you don't need that much.
Right, 4 hours and you're good.
Yeah, but in general, I think even you could be. I mean, they've done it sadly, like studies on dogs and stuff, like, where they would give them food and water, but they'd deprive them of sleep, and they would always, the ones who were deprived of sleep, always died over the ones that slept and like were deprived of food or water. Like, 'cause, you can go a long time with just water, but it's the sleep that'll kill you over anything else. But the Russian sleep experiment was. People believed it was a thing, and I'm sure, I don't put it past that there are some things people genuinely do to each other. But it was like the 1940s, and these Russian scientists or Soviets took like 5 people. I don't know if they were prisoners. Again, story tale, but took 5 people, put them in a room where it was like an empty room with like nothing besides like a bed and a toilet. The mirrors were like those double-side mirrors where like they couldn't see them, like the scientists watching them. Then they had like these intercoms so they could like talk and hear. And they put this like gas in there that made you stay awake. And everything was normal for like the first few days. And then I think in the story it got to like day 5 and people started kind of acting weird. And then I think on like day 5, 6, 7, it goes like completely silent. And like they can't see in there, they can't hear anything. So they start saying like, okay, we're gonna open the doors because we have to check on these subjects. And they had like ripped themselves apart, like ripped each other's esophaguses out, ripped their guts out, like just went fucking bananas. And there's like one guy still alive, I think on like day 15 or something crazy like that. Because I think they tried to keep him up for like 15 days or like a month. They didn't even make it like, barely the 2 weeks. And when they turned the gas off, that's when some of them just started dying. Like it's like they finally got to sleep and it killed them. And the last guy was like, don't let me fall asleep, don't let me fall asleep. And this guy's got like his fucking guts open and shit. And
we're not laughing at that. For our audio listeners, Laura the dog woke up and is now stretching very
But the whole thing that got me about this one, because like you think it's real, was right before they killed the last guy. He says, we are what you put away when you sleep, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind, where you would hide from what you would hide from in your bed every night. We are what are used. This didn't get it right when I was
typing it up. Or thereabouts.
Yeah. We are what you put to silence and paralysis. We are what you hide. when you go to sleep. And that's what kind of felt scary, because it was like, do we really unlock something
When
we don't sleep? And is that why we go so fucking crazy? Is that why we start hallucinating? You know, like, you can just have 1 or 2 nights of bad sleep and you're already like agitated.
Yeah.
You know, shit like that. So that was what got me of the chills of like, oh fuck, what he was like,
Is
you've
there a
let me
part of
free.
you
Yeah.
that your brain literally has to rest to keep at bay?
Exactly.
Otherwise,
this is what happens. This is what you
Bam.
unlock. And that to me was like the scariest part. I mean, it ended up just being like a creepypasta story someone told, you know, like the early 2010s. But I think there's probably some truth to people experimenting on people on that sort.
what's a creepypasta?
Creepypasta is a website where people who just write stories, usually like darker, fucked up stories, just have a form to like, hey, I wrote this, read it.
It's
you
just
know?
horror short stories,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
mhm.
Okay. I
From,
was actually
like-
serious. You said it like before the show.
Oh,
I was like, "Oh,
sorry.
there's this creepypasta," and I was like,
You're like,
"I'm gonna
"What?"
wait till the
You're
show
like,
to
"What
ask
the
them
fuck
what
is
that
that?"
means."
Yeah, it's just a forum where people can put up their like short stories they write.
I mean, I believe it. I know that those sleep studies have existed.
Right. I mean,
just-
I guess it's not the. I do think sleep experiments happen. Do people go to that extent when they're deprived of it? That's
Yeah.
where it's like, who will ever really know?
I know some instances, yes, because
Yeah.
there's. I remember I found one of those studies whenever we can probably save this for another episode actually, but I was researching dieting and starvation and like what can you survive starvation and stuff like that. And it turns out that back in the day, the old U.S. government ran some pretty serious tests on depriving people of food, depriving people of water, depriving people of sleep, and they are documented pictures, and you can go
Yeah.
look at some shit.
Mm.
And again, you know, I can talk about dieting and stuff and that could be an episode. But the sleep study, it wasn't as intense as that.
Right.
And they also weren't awake that long, you know, for no
Right.
15 days. But it was after like the one they held, I think the longest they had was someone was up for about 5 days, and then they got, you know, first it was like irritated,
Right.
and then it was violent,
Mhm.
and then it was and then they realized that their brains they every time they would like do CAT scans and all this stuff, and
Don't your cells start to die? When
yeah,
you
your
don't-
brain starts to die.
Yeah.
Your brain cells start to give out, and then the person who was up the longest, when it was all said and done, they have like pictures of the MRI,
Mm.
and it's like there's just blacked out parts
Right.
of their
Just
head
gone.
that are just they're gone.
That's
and
scary. And that's what I think happens to people that like, you know, when you're an addict and you don't get either real sleep like the REM and you're just
Yeah.
kind of passed out, like, one, your health is going to deteriorate just physically. 2, and then how long are you living like that? Your brain is slowly just deteriorating, and then you can't come back from that once your brain cells die, you know?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, people don't realize how much our brain is running at once.
Yeah.
You know, it's like running a computer max to the bone, and it's like it's gonna get hot, it's gonna think, and you gotta shut that sucker down, and
Yeah.
it's gotta cool off.
Gotta, reset almost.
And or a car, you know, you're
Process.
redlining it. You know, you don't know it, but your brain is redlining it
Yeah.
all the time. And if you don't give it the time it needs to cool off with that sleep, then just like redlining a car, not meant to do it forever. Eventually, seals will start to go,
Mm-hmm.
rods will start to break, and things will start to pop until it just.
Don't. I had an old friend who used to be a crystal meth addict, and she would tell me about the stents of like, I mean, when I met her, she was sober. She would just kind of tell me about her crazy stories, and there were times she said she would just be like on dope for so long. She'd be up for like a week straight, and I just thought that was insane. You said as soon as you got tired, you just did again. You just were running on like nothing, and then you'd crash for days where you like were pretty much unable to wake up. Like you don't need to eat. You know, like you're just out, and I just can't imagine what that has done to anyone's
I
health.
love sleeping, and I'd nap. I nap all the. I try not to, but I would nap all the time.
Yeah,
And
I think that's also like a sign when you have depression too. Sleep a lot. Through your ups and downs.
yeah, but I do just I like sleeping.
Yeah.
I dream almost every night. Some dreams are cool. I thought up some real interesting.
Have you ever had a dream that when you woke up, you literally were like, "What's that?" Like for like either the day or the moment, like you almost had to convince yourself, like, did that really happen or not?
All the time.
Really? That's crazy.
Maybe once a month.
Okay.
So, where I'm like, sometimes it almost feeds into like a deja vu.
Yeah.
Where, because sometimes a lot of times my dreams are so benign.
Yeah.
In what I'm doing. Sometimes they're fantastical, or sometimes they're just boring. And the boring ones are whenever I'm like, I get up and I'm like, I don't, and then I'm like, and then the next day, because I think part of that is because I remember my dreams so well, that I have to remember, like, was that a dream? Was that real?
Right.
It was just hanging out with Sebastian.
Right.
And then I'm like, did we
do that?
Did we get lunch last week? And they're like, what? And then, and he's like, which day? And I'm like, what? And then I could be like, I told you about this. And I'd be like, no, you didn't. Like, I remember pretty clearly, but now that you mention it, maybe not. And
no, yeah. I think that only happened to me as like a kid a couple times, but more so because when you're a kid, your concept of time and things are much different. So I'd be like, did that really? I don't remember.
seeing, but I think if I started deep diving into dreams and my dream nonsense, that's too much of a rabbit hole to go down. And I remember too much of it.
Yeah.
And
I'm just wondering maybe if you recognize what maybe some of those dreams mean that you won't really have them anymore. Because, like, I don't really have dreams anymore about my dad.
I don't have those dreams anymore. Okay. They're just so imprinted into my brain that I remember them like a memory. Or like a movie that I watched, you know? They just exist there. But, again, most of my bad dreams now, I don't know, ever since I learned that I can fight, I will fight in my dreams. Yeah. And if I don't win, then I wake up, you know? And that is like the worst feeling of like when you're the punches that don't feel just like anything.
You're like, I know I can fucking hit harder than this isn't doing anything.
And that's why in your dreams, find a weapon.
Yeah, I've had my gun and it doesn't fucking work and it's jammed and I'm like, what the fuck?
I haven't had that happen yet.
Or I've had a knife where I'm like stabbing and it's almost like those fake knives that just like go in.
Like the prop
knives. Yeah, and you're just
stuff.
like, why isn't he going down?
I haven't had those. Do you dream in color?
Yes.
Me too. Apparently most people don't. Yeah, I was doing some research on this. Apparently it is a very small percentage of people who dream in color.
That's wild. I know. I couldn't imagine not dreaming in color.
Right? And they did this like survey, and they were like, only like, I can't remember because as soon as we did this, I like watched it but I didn't write it down. But it was like 8% of people dream in color.
Oh, that's not a lot.
So yeah, and some people, they don't actually hear things in their dreams. They can perceive what's going on, but they don't actually.
Yeah, I guess I never thought, but it sounds reasonable, like that everyone's experience, like visually or audibly, would be completely different in their own dreams.
The thing is, for the most people, black and white. And then for a lot of those people, they don't hear things. I'll wake up.
I feel like black and white would seem less real.
Yeah, exactly. And I dream in color. I'll wake up if I'm hearing things in my head, and it drives me crazy because I'll hear them in my dream. And if it's like a song or a video or something, as soon as I wake up, I go and look it up so I can hear it in real life, so it
Yeah,
can like set it in
process
my
through,
head.
yeah.
And I don't know, when I read that, I was like,
That's fascinating.
I guess I'm not. It's weird, but at least I'm not alone. You know?
No,
what I mean?
exactly. I hate the dreams. I don't know if you've ever had these where like you wake up feeling as angry as you did in the dream. Like I've had dreams before where like Sito's like with another girl and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like cheating on me. And you're like so angry in the dream that when I wake up I look at him I'm like, I'll fuck you up right now.
You know, I've seen that joke.
But you've never had it.
I've never had it. I
Mm.
also didn't know it was real. I thought
They
it was
feel real, like your emotions feel like, wow, they like really betrayed me or something.
I honestly thought it was like some misogyny ass shit that the people just made fun of. You know, mostly women. I've only ever seen it in context of like a woman who wakes up and is like, "You cheated
Yeah,
on
yeah,
me,"
yeah.
and the dude being like, "What the fuck?"
No, that it's really a feeling.
But I've never had it. I've never
It's
had
not a
it.
good feeling, but you really feel that. Like I wake up and I'm like almost like, what the fuck was that? You know?
I've been.
Or wake up crying because you're like crying in your dream and then you're like, oh shit, that wasn't real. Like I've done that.
I've had some stuff like that, but it's more so like I've been murdered in my dreams by
you
people
actually
who care
died?
about me. Yeah.
I've never actually died in a dream.
Uh.
Some people say that if your dreams feel real enough and you die, that sometimes you can actually die. I don't know how much I believe that, but it's interesting.
I don't know. I've died in my dreams, and I've woke up with like a tear, feeling sad, and
Just
you
a
know,
tear, guys. One tear.
well, your eyes are shut. You know, they're not like you can't. Like,
I've been like sobbing.
oh really?
Yeah, like I've woken up like, and I can't stop it until I've convinced myself like, okay, that was not real.
I've, for me, it's been like it's more so like I would be, but it's leaking out. You know, it's not like I'm sobbing. It's just they're leaking, and then I'll get up distressed and being like, especially when I was having real problems with like depression, anxiety, and you know, I'd have dreams where I get murdered, and then I'll wake up and be like,
yeah.
And honestly, it would make me feel better because I feel so much better about if I know something, even if I can't control it, just knowing that I can't control it makes me feel better.
Yeah, because that's your control is knowing.
Exactly.
That's how I am.
So, you know, like when I have panic attacks, that's what messes me up because like I can't really control them without taking these certain steps. And like I remember, this is really just for context, it's not important to dreaming, although it did mess with my dreams a lot, is I had this infection a couple years ago, and I didn't know I had an infection, and then it went into my bloodstream, and it went, apparently this can happen where it goes in your blood, it can go into your ear, and it will permanently fuck up your sense of balance, your equilibrium, because there's a bunch of these like tiny hairs inside your ear that deal with your equilibrium and your sense of balance. And if it gets infected, I guess if you have a lot of ear infections, it can also happen, stuff like that. But it swells, and then when they swell, you get the scar tissue. So I remember like freaking out because everything was like, things were just spinning all the time. I would go to I went to the hospital, and they're like, oh, you have an infection. And then they did that, but then it didn't go away. And then finally this one guy, and like I would be spinning in my dreams and wake up and still be spinning. And
I mean, they do say when you're physically ill that you have like horrible dreams just from like being sick.
Yeah, right. Like that's another good question. Have you ever had like have you ever had fever dreams? Those you know that term fever dreams?
Yeah, but I don't really know what it means.
So if your fever gets high enough, I've only ever had this happen once, where I had, or now twice actually because of COVID. But the first time was about 5 years ago. I got the flu, and it's the worst flu I've ever had. And it's your brain starts to cook, so you literally like are slipping in between dream and reality, and you have very vivid, intense.
Right, you can't tell what's like real or fake.
Yeah, almost like hallucinogenic dreams that are also being exacerbated by the fact that you're so physically
that's
ill.
never happened.
It happened once. It's whenever I was living at this with a few roommates, and I remember I was just like huddled in a blanket
Yeah.
with like I think my fever was like 105, and me and Alex both caught the flu. My brother, he went blind. Apparently, if your fever gets bad enough, you can go blind. And then he went to the hospital because his eyes stopped working. They're like, "Oh, you had a really bad flu. Don't worry, it'll come back." And it did.
That's crazy.
And I just had like these crazy fever dreams where they're like some of the only dreams I don't remember that vividly,
Yeah.
but they were very like Van Goghian,
Okay.
and where everything was always like melty and swirling and moving, and you know, I've never done psychedelics, but I bet it's like that.
It can be.
That's another
crazy.
thing. So you done drugs, right?
Have.
I haven't done a lot of drugs. They disagree with me, so I but what's dreams on drugs like? Is that different, or you not really like notice it as much?
Yeah, I feel like I'd be so out of it I wouldn't remember my dreams. I know sometimes if I'm like really high after smoking, my dreams I don't remember them. Yeah, so I feel like it has the opposite effect on me. I don't remember them at all. And then I feel like when I had this like crazy trip on shrooms, I don't think I dreamt for a while because I was still trying to figure out
Like what
what
deal was.
happened, because it felt so surreal, and you know, people's faces were like melting off, things were swirly, and it was kind of just like, this is too fucking much.
Classic bad trip.
Yeah, and I just need to go to sleep and try not to think about it too hard, you know, just accept the trip and not fight it. But yeah, I guess I feel like when you're doing drugs or drinking, you're not actually getting REM sleep. And they say if you smoke too much, you don't actually hit REM. Like I know when
That's why stoners are always tired.
when grandma passed, I had a dream about her like saying goodbye to Sito, and I thought that was super interesting. Like it wasn't my grandma, and who knows what that really means. Some people think it's like a real visitation or something, but I know I was talking to some family members and they're like, "Oh, I really want to try to hone in on my REM sleep so I can maybe dream about her." And I thought that was fascinating.
That is, I never really thought. I remember, like I have those dreams. Like my older brother passed away, and like recently I had a dream that was a very mundane dream, but he was there the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was just us together, and I remember waking up and being like, "Oh, that was nice," you know,
Yeah.
dreaming of that, or you know.
I've had friends who's,
I never really thought of it as like a visit or something.
you know, there's a lot of people that's like, my mom's super into like dreams and stuff and what they mean, as woo-woo as I can be, you know, to some people. But like I remember I told my mom, because even like when I was young, if you went into our bathroom to take a shit or you just wanted to escape in there, my mom had a dream book like that thick on the toilet seat that you could just go through. Like we always had one. But I remember I told her, okay, this will sound a little crazy. When my dad was in the hospital, the first time, he had pus fill up in his lungs and he lost a lung. He was kind of like in this like comatose state, and he was in the hospital for like a month. And I remember it wasn't really a dream, but like I heard him, or I thought I heard him, and I thought, you know, I'm home alone, and I thought, oh,
an impression was made.
yeah, and I thought like, oh, did they come back already? And I go out into the living room where he sleeps on the couch, and he wasn't there. And I remember having a dream about him telling me he was gonna be okay. I was like, damn it. But
Foiled.
I remember telling my mom, And she's like, oh, I really want him to visit me in a dream. So I always had this impression that meant someone was really visiting you in a different spiritual way. Like when my best friend's grandma passed and she dreamt about her grandma, I always thought like, well, maybe that was her like saying goodbye to you. And so when I dreamt that about grandma, I don't know why I dreamt it, because she wasn't, I wasn't in her life that long, but it still felt special. And when I told Sito about it, he was very like, oh wow, like that's nice. Whether it's real or not, it still feels real enough to be like, maybe they did say goodbye or something,
I that was one of the questions I wrote down. Was we talked about in the last episode, or the episode 4. Anyway, we've talked about in the past about legends that have been ubiquitous, despite time and also providence. Of like wherever you are, these things exist, and one of those is like dream walking. And a lot of older native cultures, they believe in this idea of all over the world of being able to, if you hone it in, one, control your own dream, which we now know is real. Lucid dreaming is real. That's something people can do. You can actually see it on REM studies, where like you can see when someone starts to lucid dream. But this idea of dream walking starts with control and then evolves into going into someone else's dreams. And there's like certain people being able to like traverse through this, and I know there's like certain Native American stories about dream walkers and all this stuff. And I was going to ask if you believed in that kind of thing. What were your thoughts on this another ubiquitous legend of this idea of, does that kind of give credence to this idea of
there's more
dreams being this secondary existence that's kind of that they do explain in the show a little bit, where they're like, people the guy Morpheus is like, people spend a third of their lives in my realm. It's like, oh, is there some merit to that, of being like, oh, if you get good enough at kind of mastering dreams, can you walk through this world that's not just your own, and then be able to influence or go into other people's stuff?
I think I view it as the same thing I review people that believe in God. Maybe not.
Hard to say.
Do I think there's maybe people that are a little more touched or special? Probably. But how much I really believe it, I don't know. You know? I think the little part of me that does believe it is just for that little ounce of like, oh, that felt good just to see them again. Like when I dreamt about Grandma, I never met Grandpa, right? But I've seen pictures of him, and he was in my dream. Because they say you don't dream of people, even if they look like strangers, it means you've at least seen them walking by. Like you can't just like, they say you just can't make up faces in your dreams.
You have to have like a conscious or subconscious
of that person. And like I remember,
I didn't know that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, they say it, who knows? But yeah, it was like in my room, Grandma being at like the doorway and being like, get Sito. I get him. And there's like this big tall figure behind her that, again, I've never met Grandpa, but it felt like, okay, that's him, big beard, like it looked like him. And it was her just saying kind of like goodbye, and then him like taking her hand wherever the fuck they went. Again, I don't know what it means, but if it means anything, the little bit feels good if it does mean something.
Yeah. Say, I don't know, again, I don't, like you, I don't know how much of that stuff I believe, but as someone who loved Grandma and Grandpa very much,
right,
it
would feel touching.
I mean, you're touching me right now, like you're hitting me in the heartstrings with this, because, but you never told me this before, and that is,
I guess I don't tell people.
If I had that dream, it would have fucked me up, let me tell you.
I guess it never felt right saying it out loud, in the sense of like, I wasn't around as long as like you have, or I wasn't the grandchild like Sito and his sisters were, so and I didn't want to take anything away from anyone. if it felt like, why the fuck are you dreaming about her? You know, I just have vivid dreams. That's just what it is. Period. You know.
Look, yeah, you.
So I
you're
just took it as like, yeah, that's just not something I'll say all the time, but for the people that maybe it might feel good for, I'll say it, you know? Just like if my mom passes, I hope I get to see her in dreams. You know, it's just something that feels nice, whether it's real or not. Feels real. Like that shit felt real.
Yeah. I think I dream of passed away loved ones quite a bit.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, not like all the time, but fairly regularly. You know, I've dreamt of
Your brother, you said?
yeah, my brother, he's been in a good bit. My Nana, I've had dreams with her a lot. Honestly, like, you know, I've had a lot of people I love and known have passed away and stuff. I've had a dream, I think, with grandma in it, and you know, but it was more so just like it was more of a memory kind of than a dream or like a re-thing. But honestly, I think that I've connected with a very small number of people.
Right.
But like my dog Dax, I've had dreams with Dax where I was just like, I'll wake up and be sad because Dax is gone, and then you know, Alora's in my face,
like, hey,
right there, and I'm like, you're not her, but I love you too.
Yeah. I mean, a part of me thinks maybe sometimes our brain just knows when we need something like that, and so it produces it as either closure or just, like you said, a memory that is nice to look back on, almost like looking through a photo album, you know?
Give you a good kick in the pants.
Exactly. But I've never had anyone in my life pass away that I
was like deeply connected to.
Yeah, so like, I guess grandma was kind of that first one that I felt that connection through y'all as a family, that I was like, oh, like I can somewhat get that feeling just from you know, being in her life from a kid or whatever, you know? So I think that's maybe why I had it. Or, I don't know, maybe I'm a
Probably a bit of both. You're definitely special.
Who knows? But yeah.
Well, do you have anything else you want to say about dreams or anything like that?
Everyone go look in a dream book.
I don't know what a dream book is, so I will go look it
I mean,
up.
you can even Google like dream books, and they'll just pop up PDF style on your
Is it just
Google.
books of people's dreams?
No, books of what your dreams could mean.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Should have asked that earlier.
Or, you know, I think it is super cool if people, I know some people do log their dreams. I think that's cool too.
I tried doing that for a while, and then I was like, why am I doing this? This what, you know? I don't remember them any more than I already remember the other ones.
Yeah, I'd say if you got a kick out of this episode, any interest, take a deeper dive into what your dreams might mean.
Oh, there is one thing I wanted to add just real quick. So whenever I thought of this topic, I was trying to think of something to attach to it. Now I kind of wish that I went with my other idea instead of this, but I wanted to see if you like this. But there's an A24 movie that just came out recently with Nicolas Cage, which is
Long Legs.
Is that what it's called? About the guy who appears in people's dreams?
No, I don't think so. Maybe though, I don't know.
Well, this movie, it's actually not that great of a movie.
So it's not new. It's been out.
It came out this year.
What's
I think.
it called?
I don't remember what it's called. I could look it up. Anyway, but it has Nicolas Cage, and the whole premise. It's not actually. I didn't think it was very good. There's some funny parts and some kind of darker parts, but the whole premise is that this normal guy, he's a college professor. He's just kind of a regular dude. He starts appearing in people's dreams all over the world. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't engage. He's just there. And it's this phenomenon of everyone.
Dream scenario.
There you go. Dream scenario.
Oh, no, I haven't seen it. It got a 91 on Rotten Tomatoes. Wasn't that good, though?
I didn't think so. And then, but the reason I bring it up is because of just this one part where, you know, we were talking about a little bit earlier about what if dreams were this connected space.
Yeah.
In this movie, the do a very funny thing where because of this, they realize that dreams are this connective space.
Okay.
And the first thing they do is this company figures out how to access that space and then monetizes it
Oh,
with
fuck,
influencers.
Of course.
And then so like these teenage California influencers will show up in your dreams and be like, check out this pre-workout.
Oh, God.
Look at these shoes.
It's exactly what it would be if they could.
Exactly.
It's like commercial promo central.
Be like, if we can advertise in your dreams, we're gonna do
exactly.
it. And they do a very good job of Nicolas Cage being like, get out of here, and then doing the punching, and then the guy being like, what are you trying to fight me for? I just want to talk to you about this pre-workout.
Damn, I gotta watch that.
Anyway,
But yeah, if you enjoyed this, maybe go Google some of your dreams, what they might mean. It's always a fun little rabbit hole. But it's really, if anything, your brain just kind of processing your day-to-day.
just dealing, resetting, getting some rest.
Exactly. Don't sleep on sleep.
Make your dreams come true. Don't let your dreams be dreams.
And until next time, be
Until next
safe.
time.
Thank you. Check out our
socials.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, I forgot what the outro was, but check us out on Patreon, YouTube,
TikTok.
TikTok.
Share us, like us, donate $1 or $2.
Yeah, I would really appreciate it. It would help us out a lot. Just your views, help us out a lot. If you feel like you would like to give more, you really like what we're doing, check us out on Patreon. Throw us $1 or so. We'll have extra shows, kind of exclusive stuff, and then just the support would be nice. Anyway, did we have an outro? I don't.
It's something like that.
It's something like that. I'm not gonna look it up.
We
Anyway,
can hone it.
I love you.
Bye.
Don't let your dreams be dreams. Bye. But see, you're insane. You're talking like a crazy person.
I am a crazy person.
There you go.
We're all crazy.
No need to gaslight you. It's already lit.
Literally. Oh, shit.